trying to fight a war on a planet that I've never even heard about. I think that's where I get my kick, man.
We're
Right.
fucking psychopaths. I want to burp 1 second. You know, we should be the captain of our own destiny.
Yeah.
That is exactly what capitalism is all about. That is what Suharto teaches all.
Free market.
About.
Yay.
Free market, yay, man.
I'm more sympathetic towards the imperial.
Welcome back to the Based Indonesian Talks. Well, for today, things are gonna be a bit different, as you can see. You know, it's just cosmetic-wise, not substance-wise. Don't worry, we're still gonna talk about the important shit. But today, I have a very special guest, as usual. Please welcome Mr. Wafa Taftazani.
Hey, how are you guys?
There you go. I am so glad you're able to join me today because
Thanks for inviting.
you are welcome. And I really want to talk about stuff, you know, because like the last time we met was in the Republic Creator, right?
Yep.
And then you talk about feudalism. I was like, this guy has an acute understanding of feudalism that not a lot of Indonesians seems to grasp. This guy must be a medieval nerd. And if he's a medieval nerd, he must also know Warhammer. So I was like, that's why I shot you the question off camera, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you play Total War? Do you medieval stuff? And then do you know way Warhammer? Like, yeah.
Turns out I do.
Yep. So I want to talk about Warhammer first.
Yeah.
Right. So actually, before we get into the appetizing discussion, the main topic for today is we're going to talk about the Indonesian gaming industry.
Yeah.
But before we get there first, I want to talk about Warhammer.
Well, Warhammer is part of the gaming industry.
It's part of the gaming industry in the UK.
In the
And
UK.
in Indonesia, it's still a very niche hobby.
It's pretty niche. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Warhammer, right? In case you guys don't know, Mr. Wafa Taftazani here is a huge Warhammer geek. I spent... how did you manage to discover Warhammer?
Well, my first encounter with the Warhammer universe was through a PC game, Warhammer 40k Dawn of War, first one, and then second one. That hooked me up with the Warhammer universe, basically. But then I went to Cambridge for studies, and I got introduced to the tabletop side of Warhammer at Cambridge. We used to get around, especially in winter when it's cold.
With the rest of the Indonesian students.
Not Indonesian students. It's the British students.
That
Basically.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Some of them, like me, they don't go home during winter break. So we just basically hang around, spend time together, and we play a lot of tabletop games. And one of these games is Warhammer tabletop game.
Warhammer, yeah.
Well, I get deeper and deeper into the lore after Cambridge, and then I start discovering all of the other Warhammer games. Total War Warhammer, and there's this game where you basically control a fleet of spaceships as well.
Yeah.
Also from the Warhammer universe. Yeah.
Battleship.
Yeah.
Something Gothic sector. I don't.
Gothic something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Battle Armada or something.
Battle
right?
Armada. Yeah.
That is fun as well.
That is really fun.
That is a lot of fun. But my favorite Warhammer game by far is Warhammer 3, Total War.
Of course, man.
So expansive, so
Yeah.
deep, so engrossing, so immersive.
Yep.
It's everything I wanted in a game, basically.
Of course,
Yeah.
man. A lot of shit there. Dark fantasy, high fantasy, lots of mods to boot.
And just the scope of it and the scale of it. Sometimes
So
it's hard to believe that they actually made this happen.
The entire world of Warhammer Fantasy in a single
there.
game. It's there. It's actually a video game hallmark, to be honest.
It is an achievement. Yeah.
It's an achievement because people saw Warhammer 2, right? And they saw that the entirety of the old world and the new world was there. And they were like, this is the peak of gaming. This is how much the Total War engine could go so far.
Yeah.
And then Creative Assembly managed to outdo themselves by adding half of the world into the world space, into the game space.
Yes.
That's an achievement.
That is an achievement.
Yeah.
And how the community basically rallied around the developers as well. they start cranking out mods that improve the game. There's even this mod that basically adds Southeast Asia, the kingdom, and
I've heard of
basically
that mod.
the corresponding Southeast Asian realm in the Warhammer world. They even added the sunken city-state of Malay, which is basically obviously based on the Malaysian peninsula. Yeah. There are mods that basically add new regions, new cities, new civilizations to the grand campaign. It's amazing. It's incredible.
Is that in Steam Workshop? I haven't come across the Malay one.
It's on the Steam Workshop tab. It's all there. Yeah.
My dream is to transfer all the Total Warhammer 2 mod into Total Warhammer 3. Because the Sigmar's Heir, so there's a mod in Warhammer 2, right? It's called Sigmar's Heirs. It's where you can basically, it redefines the entire way you play the Empire. There's like
how so?
The elector counts has more bearings on consequences. Like they have the
I hate
summon the elector counts. Yeah,
I hate dealing with them.
Yeah. So there's more bearings towards the political consequences of putting counts, and then there is more units as well, and then there are more buffs and debuffs. So it literally plays out. In the way that the Empire is supposed to be played out. Right. And one of the things that I'd like to point out about Total Warhammer, right, before we get into Warhammer itself, is that Total Warhammer series came after Total War Attila.
Right. Yeah.
So in Total War Attila, people say that it is a survival strategy, right? It is a survival strategy. They managed to mix real-time strategy, grand strategy, with elements of survival horror, right? You in Total War Attila, you have to save a fallen empire, the Western Roman Empire.
Yeah.
And that gameplay, the mechanics of Total War Attila is moved over to Total Warhammer 1. In that when you play the Empire and the rest of the forces of good, what's it called? The
Forces of Order.
Yeah, the Forces of Order. Yeah, the Forces of Order faction. And then you have to face Chaos, and Chaos comes in like this big doom stack. So the mechanic was transferred over.
Right, I didn't realize that.
The mechanics for the Forces of Chaos actually came from the Attila faction in Total War Attila.
I see.
Yeah, the nomadic gameplay and the way you raise and scorch the earth and salt the earth, etc., etc. And that is exactly why I like Total Warhammer, especially like the Grand Campaign, because when you reach a certain turn, there comes the Forces of Chaos, like Archon, the Ever-Chosen, and Sartorial, the Ever-Watcher, and then the rest of the forces of of Slanesh, Khorne, Nurgle, and Tzeentch.
How do you pronounce that?
Tzeentch. Yeah, or Tianchi in Grand Cathay. Oh my god, I'm geeking out right now.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun, man.
So you don't know how much nerdgasm I had when they announced that each of the Forces of Chaos, each of the Chaos Gods gets their own faction.
Yes.
Right? I was like, wow, how would I fight the forces of Slanesh, of Nurgle, right?
Yeah.
Because they're obviously, both of those factions are the most... It makes people vulnerable. Slanesh makes people get down on their knees and be like, oh yeah, whip me, mommy.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Nurgle is like, oh shit, maggots coming out of my nails and shit, right? So it was really interesting. Oh my god, like I am freaking out right now. Like, oh my god, Warhammer. Let's get to the Warhammer proper, right? You said before we start this, like you read the lore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how much did you spend on the lore, and what exactly do you like
I
about
spent
the
an
lore?
ungodly amount of time on the lore. I try to really get deep into the history of the Empire, the surrounding faction, Brettonia, the border princes.
The border princes of Akendorf.
Exactly, and Kislev, and all the different human factions. There's also this faction called Arabi, right?
Arabi,
which is obviously based off the different tribes of the Arabian Peninsula before they were united. And I always try to play according to the rule.
Okay.
So I always try to manage my diplomatic relationships, manage my alliances depending on how I perceive the lore, and depending on how I imagine what year in the lore this would be, this specific campaign that I'm playing. So I love doing that. I love doing that.
Me too.
And I always try. Always usually play human faction as well. Not always the Empire, but typically always one of the human factions. And I always try to unite the different human realms against the threatening forces of chaos, right? So I very rarely destroy a faction. So I try to at least make them either confederate or make them a vassal. Just so that I have access to their armies, because we can do it, right? When they become a vassal, then we have the ability to summon their army basically to support our campaign, etc. So I always try to do that. And I always get excited when this doom stacks 20 units and then like a dozen stacks basically come typically from the northern
from like the chaos waste.
Exactly, right. So typically Kislev and the different cities like Erengrad, they always first take the blunt of the initial conflict,
the initial doomstack.
Exactly. So I always try to safeguard the realm of men. In any campaign that I play, right? So typically I don't spend a lot of time in the New World or in the High Elves realm in the middle of the ocean, right? So I always typically spend a lot of time just trying to unite the different human realms in the old world and making sure we have a consolidated defensive position against everything else coming at us, right? Beastmen, chaos, whatever. Right? But the lore, and why do I play this way, right? It's because I care about the lore, right? I care about accuracy, right? I care what my mind thinks about what's happening, right? And I'm so deeply invested into the role. It's even affecting me in some ways on how I think in the real world as well.
I see.
How I see states, how I see governments, how I see politicians, and try to compare them to what's happening in the Warhammer universe, right? How they do things, how they solve issues. I think there's a lot of interesting insights. I mean, not examples, because this is a medieval society, right? So a lot of examples might not be applicable, but there's a lot of values and insights that I can learn from the lore.
For Warhammer, for me personally, right, the way I play Warhammer is I usually play as either Reichland, Emperor Karl Franz, or I play as
starting at Altdorf, right?
Altdorf, yes, or I start over Pfeildorf. What's his name? Balthazar Gelt.
Balthazar Gelt.
Balthazar Gelt, the supreme patriarch.
That's Averland, right?
That's in Averland. The province is Averland.
Yes,
but the city's Pfeildorf. Right.
Cool.
So how I usually play it is like you. I do try and unite everything, right? But what I like to do usually, especially in Total Warhammer 2 back then, when they had like the Dogs of War mod, where you can literally spawn troops of foreign infantry and foreign cavalry, whatever, is to usually invade Brettonia. I despise how Brettonia is run, right?
They typically always get crushed in the first dozen of turns by the vampire factions, right?
Yes.
Typically they're always defenseless.
Warhammer 3,
Yes.
In Warhammer 3,
Warhammer 3.
usually. Because in Warhammer 3, they add in a lot of like disruptive factions over at where the humans are at. And so everything just becomes Thunderdome. But in Warhammer 2, like Brettonia is usually very fastly consolidated, usually by Carcassonne, by the Lady of the Lake, instead of what's his name, Louis, the King Louis, or Louis Leoncoeur. And so what I usually do is that I get a doom stack of steam tanks, musketmen, and then fucking, what do you call that? Hailstorm rockets. Batteries.
Oh, those rockets are awesome. Those rockets are awesome.
Doom stack of all the modded and like modded troops as well. That, you know, like modded troops from Nuln. Like you know how Nuln is like crazy with technology and guns. Like like literally like an early modern army, because like the Empire in Warhammer is basically Renaissance, right? Early Renaissance. But the way I play it is as if though the empire is already pre-modern, so they have like line infantry and all of that, right?
Yeah.
And so I doom stack those troops, and then I conquer Ataloran first, just like in World War II. Ardennes, the Ardennes Forest. Yeah, I go there first, just
So you
steamroll.
destroy the wood elves first.
Yeah, destroy the wood elves first, right? Because fuck the wood elves. Fuck them. They destroy everything, man. And so after I destroy the wood elves, I go straight of my invasion of Brettonia. And what I like to do is, because Brettonia runs on peasant economy, right?
Yep.
Because their entire military force is their own peasants. So if their peasants die, it's bad because nobody's gonna plow the fields. The peasant economy, right? So what I like to do is attack Brettonian cities, kill all the peasants, and then leave. I don't even...
You exterminate them.
I exterminate them. I don't even take over the cities. I just bomb them, war crime style.
The economy collapses on itself.
Yes, collapse on its own until like some chaos forces come, or the fucking Skavens come from Estalia or whatever, right? Like, I just imagine myself as this evil Karl Franz. Like, oh no.
Oh my God.
I just imagine myself as Balthazar Gelt taking over the empire and letting Karl Franz become like this symbolic leader, right? Well, he calls the shot and he destroys the entirety of Brettonia. Why I do this is because I heard this one time I heard Balthazar Gelt, right? I was playing as Louis Leonca, right? And then I initiated diplomacy with Balthazar Gelt. And then he said to me something along the lines like, you are, Brettonian dukes are shit. If you're shit towards me, I'm gonna uplift your peasants. I'm like, that's cold. So I'm gonna play as Balthazar Gelt, and I'm gonna do exactly that, right? And so after I take over Brettonia, I roleplay myself as mass producing muskets and then giving them to Brettonian peasants. So I have a mass of 200 infantry, an infantry regiment of 200 Brettonian peasants with guns.
Wow.
And so I send them to fight against chaos in the north.
Cannon fodder, basically.
So it's literally Stalingrad.
Human wave.
Human wave tactics against chaos knights and shit. Like, oh my God, it's so exciting. We should totally play Total Warhammer once.
I think we should at some point play a multiplayer campaign.
Yeah, we should stream it actually.
Yeah, we should. I think that will be a lot of fun. Typically what I do, I save Brettonia.
Oh yeah, you save Brettonia.
I typically always try to save Brettonia because I need them as a buffer against my core realm versus whatever is coming from the west, right? Exactly, because this could be the high elves, this could be the dark elves, right? This could be the lizards.
This could be Skavens.
Skavens,
they like to come from the south.
Could be also Norska from the north.
Oh yeah, Norska.
They love to land on the shores of the old world, right? So I typically always use them as a buffer. Sometimes I would give them Marienburg. Sometimes I would take control of Marienburg. But the whole idea is to just have Brettonia as a buffer between my core realms, basically the empire core realms, right? And whatever threat is coming from the north and the west.
Whatever batshit crazy threat coming.
So I need a strong Brettonia so that I can focus on my campaigns in the east, and in the northeast, because I love fighting against these beasts, right? The chaos people. And it's always so epic to call up reinforcements from Kislev or from my dwarf allies to save me in my last minute, right? Because typically when the reinforcements is a bit far away, you have to wait 2-3 minutes before they actually arrive in the battlefield. So what I typically do to make it lore accurate in my mind is just to fight it out from the first few seconds and then let my allies come at the last minute to save my ass.
It's just like the charge of Rohan.
Exactly. It's so epic. Even though the proper way to play probably should be to take back your forces, set up a defensive position, and then regroup, right, with the rest of the reinforcements, so you can crush them all at once. But I prefer the cinematic experience.
Of course, I respect a man who plays it by the fantasy instead of how people play it meta.
And lore wise, Brettonia has always been good friends with the Empire.
Yes, lore wise,
for most of history.
For most of history. If we ignore the entire, the problematic counts and dukes that are in the borders.
The counts and dukes and the border princes.
Yeah,
and,
like if we ignore the that entire affair, Brettonia and the empire is usually good.
And the southern realms.
And the southern realms as well. But usually what really comes back to bite us in the ass is the Skavens, though. Like, they just appear out of nowhere. And like, what I really hate about the Skavens is that they have like this built-in ambush mechanic, right? Like, we can ambush inside the game, but the Skavens have it as like a perk.
Yeah.
What I hate about the Skavens is, do you know Ikit Klau? Ikit Klau?
The hell's that?
He owns so Ikit Klau owns Skaven Blight.
Okay.
And his entire army is like the technologically advanced Skavens. The ones with the doom wheel.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, bro,
man, these rats.
These
so
fucking
annoying.
rats are so annoying. Like, they just run over my knights and shit.
Yeah,
Like, it's just so stupid.
Yeah.
But moving on from like Warhammer Fantasy, right? Let's talk about Warhammer 40K.
Warhammer 40K.
This is a bit more
It's
grim,
just as
right?
exciting. Yeah.
Just as exciting, even more because it's set in the entire galaxy.
Yeah.
Opening question. Who's your favorite Primarch and Space Marine?
I don't really have a specific figure that I'm a favorite of. I think my whole immersive experience with 40K is around the major events.
Horus Heresy, etc.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The major events. I'm not really a fan of the Space Marines, to be honest.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm more sympathetic towards the Imperial
Imperial Guard. Come on, man.
Imperial Guard.
Put it right there, man.
Yeah, I mean, because these are the everyday people, right?
Yeah, these are the everyday
that are
people.
recruited from across the galaxy to fight the wars the higher ups just decide to declare.
Yeah.
And the Space Marines are basically the badass elite guys that come in to save their asses.
Yeah, they have like 3 hearts and 5 lungs and shit.
Exactly. But I'm more on the side of the Imperial Guard. And even the upcoming Space Marine game, the Space Marine 2, right? If I'm not mistaken. I'm looking forward to actually, if possible, maybe download a mod that allows me to play as one of the
Imperial Guard.
One of the Imperial Guard. It's always an incredible experience.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's something in me. I don't know, I get a kick from facing an overwhelming adversity and being a weak party, right? And just basically trying to overcome that incredible adversity. Because as a Space Marine, you're a total badass, man.
Yeah, you're a total badass.
The kind of damage and destruction you inflict as a Space Marine,
it's insane.
It's completely, to me, unbelievable. I mean, it's a lot of fun, but I get a lot of kick from just being that average guy being drafted into a random unit in the Imperial Guard, trying to fight a war on a planet that I've never even heard about. I think that's where I get my kick, man. Yeah.
I can see why, because this is exactly why people play Dark Souls.
I think so. Yeah.
It's because like they imagine themselves as this little guy fighting the big gods and shit, right?
Yeah.
Imagine yourself an Imperial Guard on some. So the thing about like Warhammer 40K, right? This is for the viewers, is that human society, human civilization is unequal.
Yeah.
In the Warhammer,
Massive
Warhammer 40K.
inequality.
Yeah, massive inequality. There's an entire planet that's just medieval, right? That's just medieval, and there is an entire planet which is literally Coruscant.
Yeah.
From Star Wars. So there's like this. There is no single barometer of technology and development, right? So you can be a planet that is super medieval, like you guys still fight with swords to the point where the Empire just forgets you exist. Yeah, like the bureaucrats in Terra, like they forget like millions of planets exist. And so you can also be a planet that's just so technologically advanced, like your entire planet is filled with cities, right? And you take somebody from one of those planets and then you have them fight against literal existential threats, right? Against the forces of chaos again for some reason. Who is there?
They're still there.
They're still there. If you die from Sanesh, right? Sanesh is gonna violate your soul in all your orifices, right? If you die from Nurgle, Nurgle's gonna claim your soul and I don't know, infect you with millions of disease you probably never heard of. You die from zinch. I don't know what happens if you die from zinch, right? If you die from corn, well, I think dying from corn would be the most merciful, no?
Death by snoo snoo.
Yeah, because like they literally just blood for the blood god, right?
Yeah,
As long as you die, you spill blood, that's just it.
Yeah.
So dying, imagine, and then afterwards, like what? Another threat that you face, the dark elves. Who literally feed upon your emotions. They would capture you, take you to the city of Kamara, and just torture you for hours, and just so they can eat. They eat your emotions.
Such a hostile galaxy.
Such a hostile galaxy. And then you have the fucking Terminids, that's bugs, literally from Helldivers.
Yeah.
Right? And then you have the what's it called? The Necrons.
The Necrons, yeah.
Who would shoot you with beams that would vaporize you into to the point of atoms.
Yeah.
Like, it's just such a hostile galaxy.
Exactly.
And it's not the Space Marines that protects much of the galaxy, no, but it's the
Imperial Guard.
unsung men and women of the Imperial Guards, the
nameless men and women.
The nameless men and women. And you know what's so funny about them is that they're so miserable to the point like they eat corpse starch. Because food is so hard to come by.
Yeah.
Well, that's, human body is made of protein and carbohydrate anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just like, let's just like, soil them with bread and maybe some sugar, and then, it's literally like industrialized cannibalism. Yeah. And the thing about it's just such a bleak universe. Like, the thing about Warhammer 40K is that it really teaches about hope and sacrifice. And that's the thing that really attracts me to the whole Warhammer lore.
Yeah.
Karena you are faced against these unsurmountable odds, but through some kind of ingenuity and sacrifice, you can still resound because
you survive and thrive.
You survive and thrive because the thing is, the Imperium of Man, as weak as men are, they are still the largest force and the most powerful force in the galaxy and in that dimension they're in. Yeah, it's just such a hostile galaxy.
And I think a lot of people take notice if you've seen the latest series, couple of movies from Netflix, Rebel Moon. It's obviously inspired by Warhammer 40K.
I've never seen Rebel Moon.
Oh, you should check out Rebel Moon.
Yeah.
It's basically a copycat of Warhammer 40K, I would say. They change a couple of things, a few things or two, but anyone who is familiar with Warhammer would immediately recognize it as basically a copycat of Warhammer.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that bothers me is that why are these people creating copycats of Warhammer as opposed to simply creating a movie or a series of the Warhammer IP, right?
Yes.
Could be 40K, could be fantasy, but probably for our mainstream viewers, probably 40K would be more interesting because, they're Star Wars and stuff. But yeah, I think it's interesting how different people actually find there's a lot of things to like about the story of this insurmountable odds, and you as this weak species somehow is surviving and thriving through the ingenuity of bureaucracy, basically. Because there's a lot of issues within the Imperium of Man are the same kind of issues that we face today.
Yes.
Right? Corruption, bureaucracy,
complacency,
right? Inefficient allocation of resources.
Stagnation.
Poverty. Stupidity. Inequality, right? And then non-working democracy. Basically.
Yeah, non-working democracy. Non-working democracy and stupidity for the point, right? Because when you talk about the battle stars, sorry to cut you off, but like it gets to the point where the Imperial Navy, like they're so self-sustaining that their ships don't land anywhere in the planet. So there's like little tribes and people and little countries inside those humongous ships. It's so ridiculous that when you get to the deepest parts of the battleships, you can literally find prehistoric people. Like it's just so stupid.
Becomes basically a planet of its own.
Yeah, it's a planet of its own. Yeah. And whenever they fix like the pipes, they don't fix it with technology. No, they just prey on it. It's just, it's the same. It's the same issues that humanity face. Yeah,
it is the same, and I would say it's probably the same kind of issues that we're facing today. And humanity extrapolated maybe, I don't know, tens or maybe hundreds of thousands of years into the future, right? Eventually, we might face similar issues, minus all these otherworldly, interdimensional threats that we face. That might be a bit dramatic, but I can totally see the problems faced by Imperium of Men. We'll be facing them at some point.
Of course,
once we start colonizing these other planets.
If we still exist in like a few millions of years.
We will.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Yeah, and then humanity will view Warhammer as like a leading guide. Like,
exactly.
This is exactly what we should do, We should strengthen the Imperium of Man, humanocentric fascism. Yeah.
That's the thing I love about Warhammer as well. Warhammer Fantasy, when you look at the lore, the structure of the world, the map, is obviously a reflection of our own historical world, right? Cathay is basically China.
Yeah.
The Empire is basically Holy Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Brettonia is basically the British
France
Empire,
and
right?
British.
And then I'm not sure what they're trying to say by placing Nagaron, the Dark Elves, in basically what North America is
Canada,
today. And
Canada, North America.
I'm not sure what they're trying to say, but. Well, anyway, and then on the other side, you have something that extrapolates us into the future. Right? So they actually built something that looks to the past, right? And then something that looks to the future, which is Warhammer 40K, right? And then there are some overlapping elements within the lore that we totally relate to.
Yeah.
And I can totally see basically in the far-flung future, we will see this little IP called Warhammer becoming basically something of a prophecy.
Yes, a prophecy.
As the directors of The Matrix would say, The Matrix is not science fiction, it's documentary, and one day humanity will look back upon it and they will actually see it as documentary. It's interesting. Warhammer is incredibly rich.
Of course, it is incredibly rich, and I do have full confidence that people are going to see it as a guide because of human nature to believe in something, put value into something, and to make something holy.
Yeah.
But anyways, I hope we talked about Warhammer. We get it out of our system because we really
now we're satisfied.
We're satisfied pretty much. Is there anything you want to talk about in Warhammer?
Well, I think there's a few more things.
Of course, go ahead.
I really love playing as the Grand Cathay.
Ah, yes, the Chinese,
basically the reflection of the ancient Chinese dynasties, right? Just defending the bastions. I love, man, just trying to survive against endless waves of barbarism, uncivility, and evil, and just trying to keep that wall high.
You know what's so ironic is that the barbarians we face, the forces of chaos, they're mainly led by Tzeentch, right? And Tzeentch is supposed to be like the smartest chaos god.
Yeah. And it basically just can come from anywhere. Suddenly they're basically come from the mountains or stuff. But the northern part of Cathay, the Great Bastion, the wall, is such an exciting piece of gameplay. I love defending the wall every time they try to siege me. Every time they try to kick me out of the wall, it's incredible. And the kind of units that Grand Cathay have, there's
simply diverse.
There's air balloons that have basically massive cannons mounted on top of it, right?
Yeah.
And then you have these musketeers that basically sharpshooters that basically use air balloons to snipe enemies from above, and these lords that basically can turn into dragons.
Pretty much like if you add some more mods, literally those generals are gonna be like Dynasty Warriors characters.
Exactly. And you can summon a real life terracotta army from the astral realm to support your it's incredible.
Humongous, the humongous terracotta warrior as well, like the J Warriors. It's insane.
Oh, and one small exception is that as I play with Grand Cathay, I typically love to wage wars against the old world. So I love, as Grand Cathay, embark on campaigns against Araby, the Empire, Kislev, Brettonia. Dude, having Grand Cathay armies marching through Reikland, trying to break that lines of defenses to siege Altdorf, right? it's incredibly satisfying.
It's a sight to see.
It's a sight
like,
to see.
It's like a reflection of what happens if Ming China
Oh God.
manages to break through the Holy Roman Empire.
Yep,
Like that is
yep,
so insane.
yep. Just imagine Genghis Khan occupying Paris, maybe, for example, right? It's incredible.
Now, since you talked about how your Grand Cathay armies are able to break the defenses in Altdorf,
Yeah.
I would estimate that you probably have to like 200 to 300 turns per gameplay.
Yes, typically it's 250 to 350 turns before I actually get tired of it and start a new campaign all over again.
My most turn campaign is 195.
Oh wow!
Yeah, 195.
That's
So
rookie numbers. You got to keep those numbers up.
yeah, I
man.
gotta keep those numbers up, man. It's just that mostly what really slows me down is when I've literally become the undisputed military superpower.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm the undisputed military superpower. All the people like all troops that come against me, like they will literally be decimated.
Yeah.
So like the game just gets boring.
Yeah.
That's why like I like to add mods that creates plenty of doom stacks.
Yes.
In Warhammer 2, there was a mod that would make it a ridiculous amount of doom stack in a few turns. Like say when the end times is near, they would like put 20 doom stacks of chaos soldiers, just 20. And when the end times is ongoing, they put 50 doom stacks.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so that creates like a sense of urgency, hopelessness.
Yeah.
And like
It's basically like Sauron.
like Sauron, like it literally turns the game into survival horror.
Yeah.
Right? And so I like playing around that. But
Yeah.
when I become the like undisputed superpower, like things just get boring, so I just start a new campaign.
Yeah.
Or usually I play long enough for new mods and new updates to like come out.
Yes.
So I play long enough for 195 turns and then new updates come out.
Yeah.
So that's usually me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My campaign typically always ends with me and another superpower
Yeah.
vying for dominion over the world map.
Or
Yeah, so it's typically, if I play as an empire, typically the other superpower would be either Cathay or the Dark Elves. So typically at around turn 250 or 300, there's going to be only like fewer than a dozen factions left.
Yes.
Right? So it's going to be my faction and then the other superpower faction and a bunch of other smaller factions. And it's just going to be us battling it out. And typically for me, I would be unable to actually subdue them entirely because they will have so many provinces, they will have so many cities that give them so much income that trying to basically deplete them of their armies and their recruitment becomes something that is almost impossible to do. So typically my campaign ends in my in an imagined battle in my mind, which is basically an ultimate confrontation. So
I see.
typically 4 stacks of 20 full armies going against their capital or their major city. And if I beat them, then I would consider the matter is settled.
I see.
That the position of superpower has been determined for that version of the realm.
I see. So my last campaign in Warhammer 2, which was like the peak of Warhammer 2 modding, it was a year before Warhammer 3 came out, right?
Yeah.
So that was like when all these mods came out in Warhammer 2. And I remember I said to my friends, I'm going to play a single player campaign where the Empire is the end times.
Wow.
Yeah. So what I did was that I played as Balthazar Gelt, and in my head, I roleplayed as if though Balthazar Gelt created like an order and that wanted to destroy the entirety of the world so that the Empire can rule supreme and the humans can too, right?
Yeah.
So we took over Reichland, and then we went south and took Ackendorf, took what's it called, Miragliano.
Yeah.
We took
Tilea.
and that pirate city, right? And then we took Skavenblight, Estalia.
Yeah.
And then finally we took over the Wood Elves and Brettonia. And then we took out the British island. I forgot what's it called. That British island basically.
It's called Albion.
Albion, yeah. And then afterwards, after we took everything, I progressed all the technology to max. So I literally don't invade anything. And then I keep on building my economy. And I built like into like 30 armies.
Wow.
To the point I have 30 armies, right? It also helps that I have like a mod that doubles the income. Yeah, so I was able to muster the army, like 30 army in about like 50 turns.
Yeah.
And then after I'm done, I decide to rain hell upon the world, right? So I decided to start a war against the rest of the world. And then each city that I go to, I do not dominate. I destroy.
You just
I
turn them into
raise.
ruins.
Yes, and then the chaos came and we're like, what are you guys doing our job?
What happened here?
What's happening here? Why are you doing our job?
Yeah.
So it becomes like a massive fight between the forces of order, which is basically the empire, just the empire,
Yeah.
and the forces of chaos. And like the world is just in between.
Yeah.
Like, okay, who are we gonna be destroyed by? Are we gonna be destroyed by the empire, or are we gonna be destroyed by chaos? Tinggal pilih aja gitu.
Pilih aja.
Yeah.
But do you think something like that would work for Warhammer 40K? Because the setting and the scale of the galaxy is probably way too big, right? For like a grand campaign map.
Yeah, because the thing about Warhammer 40K is that it encompasses an entire galaxy and spans 40K years.
Yeah.
And 40 million years, right? And in that span of 40 million years, there has been many discoveries of the planets. So there are millions of planets that are discovered.
Yeah.
And the setting also goes beyond the galaxy.
Right.
Into a different dimension or around the outer edges of the galaxy that are basically not part of the galaxy, right?
Yeah.
And so the scale is massive. I think if Warhammer 40K wants to create a grand campaign with Warhammer 40K in the backdrop, then it would only have to focus on key planets like Cadia, for example.
Has to be a specific
and
sector.
Terra, and the Goo Stars.
Or I would love an open world third person Warhammer 40K game, right?
Yeah, I mean,
something like Star Citizen or
I mean, we could do that.
Yeah.
It's just so big though, so massive, because the battles in 40K is supposed to be merciless. Like the entire planet is just fighting and duking it out, right?
Yeah.
And then like to have that simulate in a computer system, it's just very taxing.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. But maybe one day. I mean, I'm sure 20 years ago they wouldn't have believed if we told them that in 20 years there's gonna be this massive game called Total Warhammer, and it's gonna basically render your entire tabletop game into something that is playable in the grand campaign. I think that would have been impossible probably 20 years ago. I think people would be pessimistic about that kind of concept.
Of course.
Yeah. So maybe in 20 years, 30 years, I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can see something of that scale.
Yeah, I mean, back around in 2015, people were like pessimistic that they can render the entire Warhammer Fantasy world in game engine, and now we have
It's a lot of
Warhammer
doubt.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just us pushing, the boundaries of technology. So yeah,
Well,
wow.
that's a lot of Warhammer talk.
I know, that's a lot of Warhammer talk. Like, I literally need to sit down and be like, and to consume everything we just said.
There's gonna be a total of like maybe 20 people that will actually get what we've been talking about in the audiences.
I'm very optimistic. Like, a lot of people will actually know. Like, I would say like maybe 1,000 people would know. And they'd be like, yeah,
1,000. That's
1,000,
a lot
yeah.
of Warhammer players.
Yeah, I mean, I don't keep it a secret that I like Warhammer, and some of the base Indonesians, right? The people that watch the base Indonesians, they're chronically online.
Yeah,
So even though they don't follow Warhammer, they might have a basic understanding of what Warhammer is.
Heard of it?
Yeah. So like, yeah, base Indonesians, like the reason why we talk about Warhammer, besides the fact that both of us wanted to talk about this for the longest of times, is because I think Indonesians should give Warhammer some love. Because Warhammer teaches us about hope, sacrifice, and the dangers of the unknown, and also fascism. Sorry, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But yeah,
And also because I think we've been trying for the longest time to build an IP of our own. Right?
yeah,
Something Indonesians can be proud of.
uh-huh,
Something that is probably based off our culture.
uh-huh.
It can be produced into maybe games or movies, like serious movies
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
serious games, right? Not your clicker, idle,
Yeah.
to play mobile games, but like
Yes.
serious games and serious movies. And there's a lot that we can learn from how they've been building the Warhammer IP for the past a few decades or so, right? And even should inspire some ideas on how Indonesians can start thinking about producing our own games as well.
Yes.
Right. And I think this is what we're here to talk about.
Yes, we're here.
the
That's
day.
the main course.
That's gonna be the steak, right?
Yeah, that's gonna be
Yeah.
the steak. This is just the soup.
We've only been
Yeah.
eating the soup.
Yeah, so today's actual discussion is about the gaming industry, but closing the Warhammer section of the
Yeah.
conversation. A lot of Indonesians don't understand what Warhammer is. Well, basically, Warhammer is Dungeons and Dragons on crack. It's basically that.
Yep.
It's Dungeons on and Dragons, but what happens when the story is a bit more darker and it's on crack?
Yeah.
It's literally what happens if you play with people that watches Monty Python.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you Indonesians don't know Monty Python, well, it's how would you describe Monty Python actually?
I have no idea actually.
Oh shit. Okay, so Monty Python is like the Dono Indro Casino, yeah?
I would just say national treasure typically.
It's a national treasure.
Something that a nation really cares about.
Yeah,
It's
the
an
nation
important
really
place.
cares about Monty Python because they're the best comedy trope that the UK has ever produced.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Rowan Atkinson. I mean, I love you as Mr. Bean, but Monty Python it's just a beacon of humanity. But anyways, is your water empty?
I'm good.
You're
I'm
good?
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab more water if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah.
Before we start the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
discussion, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I vape here?
Vape. Oh, you can't vape here. Sorry, but we can.
No
vape
worries.
outside later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next time I should find a location where we can actually vape. Wait, is that
No problem.
Black Air Force? I thought that was Black Air Force Ones.
I think this is called the Air Force.
Really? I have Black Air Force Ones.
I think so.
Yeah. Black Air Force are statements.
Oh wait, not Air Force. It's Air or something. Or is it Navy? I can't remember.
I see.
Something military term.
Yeah. I mean, Black Air Forces and Black Nikes has always been a statement. We're
Right.
fucking psychopaths.
We're gonna shoot you up.
Yeah, sure you will, man. You put your hand in the pocket. You actually have a gun there. Yeah. Right. So, let's get started on eating the steak. Right. So the Indonesian gaming industry, right?
Yeah.
It's just a very tragic thing, and I say it because I'm a gamer, and I really see how the trend in Indonesia is that we always consume. We don't make
Yeah.
things of our own, right? And we always consume. And the reason I'm saying this, even though there are Indonesian games in the market like Dread Out, for example, they're not that widespread. And I like to talk about the Indonesian gaming industry because I feel like gaming is one of the when we talk about practical politics, right? Gaming is one of the ways where we can engage in soft power diplomacy, right? Gaming is a soft power capita
Yeah.
that we export in the world to get money from their pockets
Yes.
and then make us rich.
Yes.
Give them an impression of what Indonesian society is like, make us seem more superior. But that's from a practical politics point of view. And as a gamer, right, I want to see our industry develop into something because our cultural context has just so much potential, but it's untapped. So I really want to talk about the gaming industry from the industrial side, the market side,
Yeah.
and the cultural side.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, you are engaged inside the industry, you have the gaming market, apa?
VCGamers.
VCGamers, right?
Yeah.
The gaming market, and obviously how the gaming industry market works and what are the problems that we're facing and what we should do. So how would you, as somebody who is part of the gaming industry in Indonesia, how would you describe the Indonesian gaming industry?
Yeah, as you described, it's now a lot of consumption, and a lot of this consumption go towards foreign companies, right? So basically, what we do is we import services when we play these games and spend on items inside the games, right? And there's a lot of development houses, Indonesian development studios, game studios that are now producing different kinds of games, mobile, PC, even consoles. And some of them even got noticed by some of the big publishers, developers, etc.
Oh, really?
But still, it's still very early stage. It's still very nascent, right? And a lot of the games that we actually produce are not really the groundbreaking ones. It's mostly looking at what works, what model works, what model is popular, MOBA, for example, and then basically taking it and then basically reskin it and basically adding our own flavors to it, right? And there's a lot of games like that. There's nothing wrong with that because we have to go through that journey first in order for us to actually get where we want, right? China is now huge in electronics and technology because for the longest time, China was a manufacturing haven for a lot of American and European technology companies. They learn a lot from it, right? They learn a lot from it. So now we're not exactly a manufacturing haven for the gaming industry,
yes,
but we are a consumer haven for the gaming industry right now. And that is why, pragmatically speaking, even though I've realized the massive potential of the gaming industry for a while now in Indonesia, but the ones that actually make any kind of real money that can actually scale up are basically the ones that deal with things like commerce, payments, right? So that's basically where I'm at right now. So VCGamers is a marketplace for gamers to trade in-game items with each other, right? Could be characters, could be skins, could be accounts, services, currencies, vouchers, you name it. And this fact is the direct output of the structure of the gaming industry in Indonesia. So Indonesians love free stuff. We typically don't want to pay for stuff if we can help it. Right? So
gratis.
We love playing free games. And those free games are typically on mobile, right? And you don't want to spend a lot of money building a gaming PC or buying an expensive console and having a large scale display.
So you play
mostly So you mostly play on a phone, right? What little money you spend, or for some people a significant amount of money, is on the in-game items and on the in-game services, right? So that's where most developers and publishers make money from games in Indonesia. But interestingly, this creates a very different type of market from the kind of market that we see in Western countries. The kind of market that enjoy games like Warhammer or Final Fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Well, IPs like Assassin's Creed, Warhammer, Final Fantasy, Dark Souls, etc., Red Dead Redemption, Grand Theft Auto. These are the kind of games that require your attention. These are the kind of games that require your focus, right?
Time.
Exactly, time. And you need to be immersed in the game in order to actually enjoy it, right? But if you see a lot of games that are popular right now in Indonesia, they're mostly games that revolve around quick reaction times. So these are typically multiplayer competitive games where you basically satisfy your primal desire of beating someone else up, of winning against each other, competitive, right? So there's a lot of trigger-happy, quick reaction games that are basically designed around it. And the other element is the basically playing with the need for gamers to click on stuff. So if you see a lot of the free mobile games that we have today, a lot of them will have tons of different notifications, man. Notifications in every single goddamn button on the main menu and on the game itself, right? every few seconds you will see a new notification. You will see a new a shiny yellow gold exclamation mark that tells you that there's something that you can check out in that specific button. So it's basically the kind of hormonal hit that we get from getting a like on our Instagram page, right? So they play on that and they realize that. So that what keeps us going into these games and keep playing, right? And a lot of them build features like idle and stuff, so you can just let your game play by itself while you work, while you go to school, while you help out your parents, etc. The game basically plays by itself in order for you to earn something, because you can actually sell those stuff in marketplaces like ours, right?
I see.
You can actually earn money from it.
Yeah.
So gaming in Indonesia is seen very differently from gaming in mature, developed markets like US and UK. The structure is very different, and that is why the business behavior and the consumer behavior are very different as well. Yeah.
I see. So it's to reach the verdict, basically the Indonesian gaming industry is a consumer-based industry.
Right now, it's very consumer
that relies on instant gratification. It's very competitive based,
Yeah.
right? And
quick reaction.
a quick
oriented.
reaction.
Yeah.
So basically, very sensing type of
Yes.
type of gameplay, right?
Yeah.
I see, and that's different from the American and like the Western European market and the Japanese market.
Yeah.
They're primed for AAA, high quality, story-driven games.
Story-driven games,
Even though like immersive games, even though the competitive scene is also pretty strong, but so is the story-driven games. They're prevalent.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can see that. I can agree with that assessment right there. Remember that Indonesia, especially like during the early 2010s, we were the battleground for South Korean and Chinese games.
Yeah.
Like the competitive games, Point Blank, Crossfire, Ayo Dance,
I
etc.
remember
etc.
those names. Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously you're a millennial.
Yeah.
So like, lu pernah ke warnet kayak gitu nggak sih zaman dulu kayak?
Oh
Sering
yeah,
nggak?
I used to.
Sering ya?
I used to spend a lot of hours instead of in the classrooms. I used to spend a lot of time at warnets playing Ragnarok Online, Gunbound, Tantra,
I see.
RF Online,
Yeah.
Seal Online,
Yeah.
Pangya.
That game is all about getting the edge from people.
Yeah,
you know?
And these are all even massive multiplayer online games even back then.
It focuses on interactions between people in a very highly competitive environment.
Yes.
Whether it is
It's not very lore driven.
It's not very lore driven, even though lore is in the background. It's never the focus.
It's just there.
It's just there. And that's when we describe the Indonesian gaming industry, right?
Yeah.
But with identifying the Indonesian gaming industry, what do you think are the obstacles of the Indonesian gaming industry? What challenges does it face? Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of challenges. Competition is one, because right now whatever you crank out, you have to compete with the incumbent games, right?
Yeah.
Games that now dominate the market share, dominate the vast majority of gamers' time, right? And because a lot of people expect that the games are free, so as a game developer, you spend a lot of time figuring out the in-game economics, how you can sustain yourself, how you can sustain your own studio by releasing this game, by developing this game. So you end up not spending a lot of time in making sure the quality is up to par. You don't spend a lot of time making sure that you can build this into an IP with rich lore that is sustainable, that can be expanded into IP with multimedia presence, right? You spend a lot of time figuring out the economics itself. Once they get addicted to it and they start spending for stuff inside the game. So you spend a lot of time trying to figure that out. You don't have the luxury of paying 200 people for 3 years to develop one game that tries to tell a story the way Japanese developers and American developers and a lot of European developers do, right? You have deadlines. You have very short deadlines to get this game from ideation into publishing, into making money very quickly, because you need to pay for yourselves. That's also a huge challenge.
So it's a lack of confidence from what I'm hearing from you is it's the lack of confidence from the investors and also the authority as well, because you can go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong in this
Sure.
one, right?
Yeah.
Or you can disagree as well, but the Indonesian gaming industry is still very based upon the indie industries. So Indonesian video game companies are very indie like, you know. It implies that it's a very small independent company
Yeah.
that is given, short amount of deadlines and, limited amount of funding.
Yeah.
Right. And when we compare this with our immediate, I want to burp 1 second. I just ate sushi. It was great. Yeah. And sushi has a lot of vinegar in it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. When we compare with our neighbors, Singapore and Malaysia, right? We rely more on these indie companies to bring us up. Meanwhile, Malaysia and Singapore, they have already been subsidized by the government, especially Singapore, which is an extra step than that. Like investors and different gaming companies and producers and publishers are coming to Singapore to expand their workforce there.
Yeah.
So a bit of nuances there. And then when we get to Japan, I feel like because the Japanese people have always had a fascination towards art and the expression, right, in different mediums.
Yes.
They see video games as just another way of not only making money but also delivering a story.
Yeah.
And in Indonesia, I feel like our cultural appreciation is there, but it's not prevalent. It's not something that that society values. We are more of the blockbuster types. We enjoy roller coaster rides rather than staring at a painting, understanding and interpreting its meaning, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like that sort of attitude also affects how investors view producing video games.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you disagree with me, or do you think that's
No,
accurate?
I agree with you in that if you are going to produce games for only the Indonesian market, then you will have to work within those limitations. But the thing with video games is that it's easily distributable. It's not something that you have to wrap, package, and ship through shipping lanes, right? It's something that you distribute through digital platforms like Play Store and Steam, right? And so the worldview has to be expanded. I think, in my view, even though this is just my personal opinion, it doesn't represent the opinion of my company, VCGamers, but I would encourage Indonesian developers to start looking at the entire world as their playground, looking at the entire global gaming market as their playground. Do not limit yourselves to selling to Indonesian market only, because if you're going to do that, then basically that you have to work within the limitations that you just aptly described. Right?
Yes.
People won't pay for premium games. People will only play once they actually get addicted to the game, and then they actually want to spend something. But we need to start investing time, energy, money, and resources into exporting games to global markets. And eventually, once this happens, I wouldn't be surprised if big name publishers start basically offering partnerships to Indonesian game developers, the ones that are currently indie, right? Typically, a developer moves up from indie to being part of a big publisher through one successful release.
Yes.
Right? It could be a dozen failed games, but through one successful release, a game that is loved by a lot of people globally, you could secure a deal with a big publisher just through that single release.
Yeah,
right?
it's like Tiny Build and EA.
Exactly. Right? So sometimes it just takes one success in order for you to get discovered by the global players, right? And as you correctly pointed out, I mean, in Singapore, for example, a lot of these big name studios like Ubisoft, Electronic Arts,
Bandai Namco,
they set up shops, right? So they hire local talent, and of course, when you hire local talent, there's gonna be knowledge transfer that happens. There's gonna be technology transfer that happens, right? It's not happening in Indonesia right now. So these guys who are working at big studios in Singapore, there's a good chance that they will eventually start up their own game studios,
Of
right?
course, yeah,
From
yeah.
Singapore, and then they will continue that relationship with their former employer, which probably now is going to be their big name publisher,
Yeah.
right? So that cycle continues. There's a flow to it, right?
Yeah, there's like a passing of a torch, right? Because they
Exactly.
work for a video game production, and
Yeah.
then they understand, they get to learn the technical know-hows.
Exactly.
And then, you know, after the game gets big enough, obviously the company wants to expand, and once working, they become more experienced. They want to seek out different career ventures, right?
Yeah.
So they get out of the company, make their own, and have them as a publisher. Like, I feel like that's the rule of business right there. Yeah.
Exactly. And that
happens in
means we should also welcome and we should provide an environment where big publishers are interested in working with our local developers, right? In order for our Indonesian games to be interesting, to be attractive to whether it's local, whether it's global investors, it has to target global market, right? We have to stop limiting ourselves to just exclusively Indonesian market, because you would end up with these kinds of games that you don't spend a lot of time making sure the quality is up to par or high. You're just trying to make sure that it's just self-sustaining,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that depends on making people addicted, right? Nobody ever says that I'm addicted to Assassin's Creed, right?
Yes.
Nobody ever says that I'm addicted to maybe Final Fantasy, or I'm addicted to whatever AAA game that has super charged IP that is now making billions and billions. Nobody ever says that. What they say is they love the Final Fantasy series.
Yes.
They love the Assassin's Creed series, right? They love the Tomb Raider series, right? They love the Armored Core series. There has to be universe, lore, quality, love that you put into actually developing the game. And gotta be honest with you, as an entrepreneur, I can totally understand that sometimes you just have to commit to that, investing that amount of dollars, and this takes time. And in order for us to get there, somebody has to start. I think we're now starting. So there's a small studio that I know that recently signed a deal with Sony PlayStation to develop basically a console exclusive game for them.
I see. Really?
Yes.
Really?
And
But
I
is
think,
the studio NDA about the whole production, or can you talk about it openly here?
I don't think it's my place to talk about it.
I see. So it's not your place.
Yeah.
Not your
Hopefully, maybe
Okay, I
they
understand.
one day can maybe be in this podcast or something to
course,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
it, right? But we're seeing more and more of that, and I think it's starting to change. Yeah.
I see. You mentioned about that we need to create an environment that really, you know, that facilitates this whole transfer of knowledge, this dynamics between publishers,
developers,
productions, developers, and also the investors, right? Which we are now starting. Now, my question is, as a person inside the gaming industry, the Indonesian gaming industry, what do you think how do you think the government views video gaming? Do they see it as like it's video game, it's entertainment, or like, okay, this is important because young people play this, or maybe we should expand this because we can take over the world using video games? Like that.
I think 20 years ago they probably sebelah mata melihatnya gitu ya. They probably underestimated the industry 20 years ago, but not today. Yeah, now the industry is getting way too big and way too important for them to ignore. Right? Basically, their electorates are spending a lot of time playing games. Right? The people that are going to vote for politicians are spending a lot of time playing games.
The people that are voted in office are playing games.
Exactly. The ones who are actually in office are playing games themselves, right? So it's an industry that is now getting too big and too important to ignore. And there's a lot of concern around how 99% of the spending that go towards games in Indonesia are basically import, right? The import of services and digital goods. Because these are for the games that are basically built by non-Indonesian companies.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that we should have protectionist policies where we basically ban games or put restrictions. No, I am totally for free market, right? Let those games exist here, right? But we ourselves as a nation should also have our own cards to play, right? And I believe Indonesians are genuinely creative people. We have a lot of stories to tell. from our own history, from our own interpretations of others' histories.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of potential for us to eventually build games that can be consumed globally. Now, the government has done a lot of things. So right now, there's the new Perpres tentang percepatan industri game, right? The acceleration of the gaming industry. I believe Pak Menko Luhut Panjaitan is the chairman of that task force.
So he leads a task force of gamers.
I guess so. Yeah, and I think that shows the government's serious commitment,
Yes.
right? From to help accelerate the gaming industry. But I gotta be honest with you. At the end of the day, a lot of the innovation and a lot of the growth will be and should be driven by the private sector, right?
Of course, yeah.
It should be driven by the entrepreneurs themselves.
I believe that.
Exactly.
Business all the way, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The private sector companies at the end of the day.
Yeah. This is
With-
what Suharto taught us,
Exactly.
man.
State-owned companies,
Yeah.
right? Now, I'm seeing a lot of ministries and I'm seeing a lot of state-owned companies like Telkom and Telkomsel
Yeah,
also
FX.
getting involved in different gaming initiatives, right? Typically working with big-name publishers or big tech companies. But at the end of the day, I believe that the Ubisofts of Indonesia, the Electronic Arts of Indonesia, the Square Enixes of Indonesia, right? The Bandai Namcos of Indonesia, the Creative Assemblies of Indonesia
Yes.
will have similar stories. The way
Yeah.
this company started is gonna be the initially small-time entrepreneurs, initially small operations that manage to release something that people just love, and they manage to raise investments, whether it's local or whether it's global, and they eventually snowball into something of a
Big.
juggernaut.
Yeah.
Right. And then once they become big, they can start investing in other developers that they know probably the only obstacle is capital. And that's how they become a publisher eventually, right?
Yes, yes.
That's how a developer evolves to become a publisher. A publisher basically is a game development company, used to be a game development company that now has so much money that they want to invest in other developers,
Yes.
right? And they want to help them market those games and distribute those games. So that's basically what a publisher is. But this
Yeah.
is a journey that I think a lot of people in the game industry has to realize does not rely on the government for its success.
Yes.
The government can provide a lot of support. And I'm so appreciative of the government because at least they're not banning stuff, right?
Yes.
They're not restricting us.
Yes.
But in order for us to actually get somewhere far, it's gonna be the capitalists.
Yes.
it's gonna be the entrepreneurs.
It's
right?
gotta be the market themselves that needs to play
has
as
to be us.
playmakers. It has to be us.
It's no
I
one
do
else.
believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that we should be, we should be the captain of our own destiny.
Yeah.
That is exactly what capitalism is all about. That is what Suharto teaches all.
Free market.
About.
Yay.
Free market, yay, man. Ali Wardana, Sumitro Jojo Hadikusumo, yeah, the Berkeley Mafia.
Yeah.
This is
The
exactly
invisible gaming hand.
the invisible gaming hand, the Keynesian, bro. This is the thing. This is the thing. This is the culmination of our budding, romance with capitalism.
Yeah.
But things are looking out. Like, you're the take that you're giving me. The outlook is very upbeat. Like things are looking great for us, especially knowing that our vice president is also a fucking gamer.
I think he is.
Yeah, he is a gamer. He games. He probably goons as well.
Yeah.
he definitely
Games
has a
and
Discord.
goons, yeah,
He
yeah.
definitely has a
He
Discord.
collects 5-star skibidis.
Of course, yeah. He sees the gyat on the Reddit posts and shit. But yeah, that's
He's
the
a
kind of
Sigma.
yeah. He's a Sigma, man. Our vice president is definitely going. Our gamer,
Yeah.
our gamer who is
Yeah.
literally a prince.
Yeah.
He's going to be a vice president. So I feel like any policies that are friendly towards video game development in Indonesia is going to get easily approved because of this guy.
Yeah.
So things are looking great. And besides, the technocrats of Indonesia, such as you yourself, like you guys are gamers as well. And we're moving forward.
Yeah.
And we're moving forward into a better future. And it could definitely we can have something. Because like Indonesia needs to realize the potential for video games is insane. We can get so much money out of this. We can export our culture from this.
Yeah. We can educate people.
We
with
can
this.
educate people. We can also indoctrinate people.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the thing about video games,
Yeah.
right? Spread the message. And people are still sleeping on that. People
Mm-hmm.
are still sleeping that video games are more than just entertainment.
Yeah.
It's an instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the industrial side of questions, right? We still have 2 more to go.
Wow.
Not the questions, the segments.
Yeah.
So like there's 6 more questions probably. But intermezzo before we move to the next one. Do you know I used to work in the gaming industry? No, well, not really work. I
Really?
I lent my voice for a gaming company. It's not out. I have an NDA.
Okay.
I can't talk about the company
coming
or
out
the
soon?
game, but I don't know if it's actually out or not.
Okay.
It's based in BST.
Did you voice act it, or did you just give a sample of your voice?
I voice acted.
Okay, you voice acted.
Yes, I voice acted. They say, "Oh, you sound like Geralt of Rivia," because like
What?
yeah, there's a line they want me to say, right? And it's like lamb stew with lamb stew with warm hearth. Perfect. Like the way I said it at the time, like even though like they didn't know, I did it over and over again, like to the point where I get my lines and intonation like perfect. They don't know that I've done that. They thought I just did it once and be like, oh, that's so perfect. So the next time like I appear and I just talk, they're like, you don't sound like you. I'm like, of course I have to read out the same line over and over again. So like, yeah, that's pretty much what happened. But my suspicion is they were probably trying to find a cheap voice actor. It's a good cost. But anyway.
Gotta start somewhere.
Gotta start somewhere. So anyways, let's move on to the market. Right. I was born in 98. When were you born?
1991.
1991. So about 7 years difference, right?
Yeah.
So that means we grew up in an Indonesia that was experiencing digitalization. The first parts of digitalization, which was the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Right. And so because regulation of digitalization and people's attitudes towards products back then was not regulated or set, there was plenty of piracy going on.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of piracy.
You go to a mall and then you want to buy a game. The game is definitely pirated. Nobody buys an original cassette, original DVD, or an original game.
Yeah.
They all buy things pirated.
Yeah.
Like a game costs less than $1, like fucking 5 cents, man. Like 5 cents is so expensive back then. Game $1 itu bisa sampai 10,000. Jadi one game is like almost $50 or whatever. Kayak kaset-kaset yang diplastikin gitu.
Yeah.
You remember, right?
I remember.
Yeah,
Di
and
Mall Ambassador.
The Ambassador, Mangga Dua, like everywhere you can find. And it's just not just games, it's also DVDs and
Movies,
also music. Yeah.
Film bajakan.
Yeah, tapi sekarang with the trend that I am seeing right now, right, is that since Steam came into Indonesia and completely the facilities are just amazing, the take backs are amazing, people would definitely go for the
and if it's
for the original.
convenient to actually buy them, right?
If it's convenient to buy them, right? And because like games are these days are integrated, are socially integrated in the internet.
Yeah.
So people have more incentive to buy them over
A
original
lot of
the
online
original
components.
copies. Yeah, the online components, right? But do you think that piracy is still a problem here in Indonesia, despite the fact that it is dying down? Because if you go to malls these days, you don't see any of them anymore.
Not much, but you can still find a few stalls.
Yeah, so you don't really consider it like a huge problem to the point where it hampers people to invest or etc.
It's still a problem because there's so many torrent sites. Right?
Yeah.
Don't forget that piracy doesn't
Right.
only happen at a shopping mall selling
Torrents.
pirated DVDs, right?
Yes.
They happen on torrent sites.
Empress, Fit Girl,
Fit Girl, and 1337,
1337,
Pirate Bay.
Yeah.
So it's not a problem unique to Indonesia.
Yes.
It's also a problem for a lot of Western game developers
Uh-huh.
and Japanese game developers, especially those that produce single-player, story-driven game with few online components. If there aren't that many incentives for people to go online and get verified, get registered, and there aren't that many incentives for people to engage with the community, whether it's through in-game economy, whether it's through modding, right? Whether it's through DLCs, whether it's through community-generated add-ons or tools or content, etc., then people might still pirate games, right? But if the games are, they don't have to be multiplayer games, but there could be a multiplayer component that makes it more interesting to play with an internet connection.
Yes.
Right. And there could also be a multiplayer component that is very interesting in addition to the single player component. Right. Like Call of Duty was famous for its epic single player. But now, today, people mostly play Call of Duty for the multiplayer.
And
exactly.
That's so sad. Like,
That's
I
sad.
hate how all the campaigns in Call of Duty are so shit these days.
Yeah, the campaign in the new recent Call of Duty games are honestly shit compared to the first few ones that we used to have. But anyway, because now, right now, mostly people play either the paid multiplayer component or the free multiplayer component, the Battle Royale mode, the Warzone mode, etc., right? It's not a specifically Indonesian problem. It's more of a global issue, and specifically in Indonesia, because right now most of the games that people play are free. Piracy is not exactly a problem, right? And that is why I'm also a big advocate, not just because my company basically revolves around enabling in-game economy and in-game communities to thrive, but also because I believe that in a functioning in-game economy and a functioning in-game community with things like modding support, content support, etc., could actually incentivize people to actually pay for the games that they play instead of pirating them, right? So this is what I like developers and publishers to understand. In-game economy that are player-driven, and then the player-driven communities, modding, these are not bad things. These are actually things that can actually add value to your game and encourage people to buy your games as opposed to pirating them.
Yeah. So I guess piracy is a worldwide problem. It's not exclusively an Indonesian problem. I do agree with you on that. And it seems like you do agree with my remark that if people were more incentivized to buy the original, no matter the price, they'd still buy the original.
Yeah.
Like, people are still lining up to buy fucking Call of Duty, even though it's like, wow, 1 million Indonesian rupiah.
And if you go to one of these malls and you go to the game bajakan DVD stalls, they're actually not that cheap anymore, even the pirated ones.
Yeah, really?
So I think a Call of Duty bajakan itu kayak 10 DVDs or maybe kayak 3 Blu-rays, dan itu kayak 400,000, 400,000 gitu.
Inflasi.
Makanya
Inflasi.
Bajakan pirated games in my mind used to cost me like what 15K, 20K, right?
Yeah, 15K, 20K.
Or maybe up to 50K if it's kayak 2 or 3 DVD sets. Used to be back in my day. But now it's 300,000, 400,000. Why not just buy it off Steam?
Iya.
Right, kan? Jadi nggak make sense buat kayak beli game bajakan karena sebenarnya udah mahal juga.
Iya, udah mahal juga, nggak ngasih online
ngasih online components,
component.
nggak bisa main di Steam, so you cannot play with your friends, cannot download mods, ya kan, cannot get patches, cannot get DLCs,
and cannot integrate it with like different apps. Gitu.
Exactly. Terus jadi kayak harus rely on cracks, and these cracks sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
And sometimes they give you viruses as well.
Exactly, and also digital rights management software are now getting more and more impressive, like the Nufo and some of the tools these developers have. Sometimes they will let you play. They know that you're playing a pirate game. They'll let you play, but they will basically hack your game. They'll make a feature non-functioning, or they could make your character so fucking weak that you actually get killed all the time. They actually do this right now.
With what game?
Different kinds of games.
Like
I don't remember the exact type of games, but there are some Denufo games that basically actually hack your gameplay. They make you suffer for it.
Yeah. And let's pause the conversation of the gaming industry a bit, because like I want us to branch a bit to Denuvo, because this is an interesting thing that you brought up.
Yeah.
Do you know Empress?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Empress with the god delusion, you know, the god complex, right? She managed to crack Denuvo, right? And like,
Yes.
it's insane how she manages to crack de nouveau, and a lot of people like they
Usually
measure,
takes a bit of time, though.
it takes
Yeah.
a bit of
So you have to
time.
wait.
Yeah. So like they measure, they compare the data, the statistics of a game a game running on de nouveau and a game with no de nouveau, and they say like a game with no de nouveau runs faster than a game without de nouveau. So while a lot of games
Or with cracked de nouveau.
or crack de nouveau,
The games run slower.
yeah, your games run slower. Because I did pirate Resident Evil Village once.
Oh, confession.
Yeah, of course. You know, we're Indonesians. We like to pirate. Arr! Army mateys!
Our ancestors were pirates.
Our ancestors were pirates indeed. So I have a confession. Yes, I am a pirate, but not of the one eye, Jack Sparrow type of pirate, but of the troll in the dungeon kind of pirate. And I did pirate Resident Evil Village once, right? This was like a long time ago, like 2000. When did Resident Evil Village came out? 2020, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do remember that when I faced against monsters, I take damage, but I don't I don't stutter. So like it really fucks up the gameplay. Because when you take damage, there's supposed to be like a disturbance on the on the HUD or heads up display or the POV, right?
Yeah.
Here, when you take damage, you just stand.
Nothing happens.
Nothing happens. So you don't.
So you don't even know that you're
you
getting
don't
attacked.
even know that you're getting attacked.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really hard to like time the hitbox and shit.
Yeah.
Like when you don't know when to attack.
That's
like,
how they try to fuck with you.
yeah, that's how they fuck with me. So I played that. I'm like, why
What's
is this
happening?
like one of these Dimitrescu sisters? Like, you know the Dimitrescu sisters in Resident Evil Village, the hot ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, and one of them like grabbed me, but for some reason I wasn't grabbed, but I still take damage. I'm like, what the fuck? So I stopped playing the game.
Yeah.
Because it was so broken. And then I think that's why like.
I think that's I think this is a tactic employed by some developers because they give you the benefit of the doubt, right? So with this tactic, you're never really sure whether you're actually playing a proper game.
Yeah.
Right. If it's a normal anti-piracy tool, you either play or you don't, right? But when you can always play, but you don't know whether you're actually playing a game that is not broken, right? Or a game that is basically just set you up to fail, or maybe a game with downgraded performance, it sort of just gives you this view of, you know what? I can never be sure. Let me just buy the
actual game.
The actual game. Let
Yeah.
me just buy the original game. Disclaimer: a lot of gamers hate it, right? A lot of gamers hate de nouveau, right?
Yeah.
Because for and other anti-piracy tools, because for a lot of them, they somehow downgrades the performance of the games that they
yes.
play, causes lower FPS, causes stutters, lags, causes bugs, crashes. So it's always easy to blame de nouveau and all of these other anti-piracy tools. But if we are going to have a sustainable gaming industry that is continue to dole out high quality games, that is not reliant on microtransactions or loot boxes or in-game ads or whatever it is, we have to let these developers thrive and prosper for the games that they create, right? That's how we're gonna get quality games.
Yeah, we need to keep on contributing to developers for their hard work.
Exactly.
That just goes back to that's just a moral resolution towards like buying a game. When you buy a game, you support the developers.
Yeah.
And what I like about the pirate community these days, not the pirate community in Saratoga. I mean the pirate community in the internet, right?
On torrent sites.
On torrent sites, is that these people, they buy games, they pirate games to try things out. And if they like the game, they're gonna actually like buy the original copy.
Yeah.
They even prove it by like sending the the bills of buying the games. Like, I love this game. I love it so much I actually bought the game. Like, even though like the game is like when they play the game, the pirated version and the normal version is just the same. There's no interference, but they still want to help
Support
the developers,
the
support the developers. Now, I know not I know not all of the pirates do this, but it's just a great attitude to have when you did piracy and you try to compensate by actually supporting the developers. I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Going back to the conversation, before I go to the next question, like you said, like, yeah, Indonesia is primarily a mobile-based game, right? And before I go to the next question, I'd just like to point out a few things because I really want to say this, but this is why Indonesian Valorant streamers, they don't get a lot of love, right? So Eno Bening, you know him?
Yeah.
Yeah, he posted a video like I think of a while ago about why Valorant streamers, they don't do well in Indonesia, right? And a lot of people, they say it's because not a lot of people have PC. Because as you said during the opening remarks of the first question, like Indonesians with their income, they are unable to buy themselves a PC.
Yeah.
When we compare with America and Western Europe,
Yeah.
where you work in McDonald's for about 2 months, you were able to buy a fucking gaming PC high end, like
Yeah.
RTX 4090. No problem. It's like your paycheck can cover that, and they still complain that they are poor. But yeah, so
They still say that they living paycheck to paycheck. But where does that paycheck go? Huh?
yeah, where does that paycheck go on your fucking gaming PC, right? That you used to goon and watch I don't know, like
Or your $9 frappuccino.
yeah,
or,
$9 a frappuccino,
$16
Yeah.
avocado toast.
Yeah, because those heretics, they don't support the boycott. Fuck them. Support boycott, free Palestine. Yeah. I do boycott. Every day, man.
Yeah, do that again.
Yeah. Fuck them. But anyways, yeah, the an alternative to the lack of PC gaming in Indonesia, there is the prevalence of mobile gaming in Indonesia, the dominance of the mobile gaming, right? And as you say, they're free, like Genshin Impact and Mobile Legends and Honkai Impact,
Free Fire.
Free Fire, like pretty much like that. And when you compare that with our neighbors, Malaysia and Singapore, whose purchasing power is a bit above us, they're able to buy like PC and
They do.
and consoles.
Yeah.
And Indonesia, most Indonesian households these days, they don't have console, right? It's compare them with back in the days when everybody used to have a PS2, right? And then when PS3 and when the 7th generation, was it? 6th generation is PS2, right?
Yeah.
Or it was 6th generation PS3? I think the 7th generation was PS3 and Xbox 360.
Yes.
And when since everybody has a PS2 and then the 6th generation come out, the 7th generation come out, and then suddenly you're like you have one of those consoles and like you're the coolest kid in the block, right?
Yeah.
And now everybody doesn't have a gaming console, let alone a PC, so they only have this. But that is just to answer maybe why PC gaming and entertainment, they don't do well in Indonesia, except if we talk about AAA games, because people want to be invested in the story and they want to be part of the journey of the game, but they can't because fuck it hell, nobody here has a gaming console. So like, yeah, moving on to the next question, right? So do you think creative wise, oh, it's okay,
Just gonna.
take your time, creative wise, do you think we are able to create a AAA game in terms of writing, scripting, dialogue, and directing?
I think we have the capability and capacity.
We have the preconditions, right?
We have the people.
We have the people who are well equipped with the creative knowledge.
Yes,
do
we
we
do.
have a government that allows creative freedom?
Yes.
And resources to
Yes.
necessitate the story that we want to bring forth in the game.
Yes. And we have access to tools that now basically help so much with game development. There's so many AI tools now that help with game developments. Yeah. So I think we do. It's just a matter of building games. Is not like doing infrastructure projects, right? 99 of the games out of 100 games you build will fail, right? Fail in the sense that there won't be enough people playing for it or paying for it to necessitate a sequel or to necessitate further developments of the game, updates to the game, right? Or it could fail in the sense that it doesn't cover the cost for its development. Right? It doesn't pay for itself. There are many definitions of failing, right? But what needs to be understood, I think that as we go through this journey, we're only going to get better and better, right? So do not let the failures of some game launches discourage us, right? EA, for its part, has done some terrible job launching some terrible games, right?
A lot. Back in the
Exactly.
PS2 era, so many terrible games.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
they learn from it, right?
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, they learn from the failures and they manage to crank out some really high quality games within the past decade or so, right? Same case with Ubisoft, but it will continue. They will then release another shitty game, and then they will learn from it, and then they're gonna release another good game, basically based off the learnings. So, failing to make a game a successful launch, right, is part of the journey, right? So the industry, government, investors, they need to be patient with the gaming development scene in Indonesia. Right?
Yeah.
You cannot expect an overnight success.
Yeah, karena kalau misalkan if we use Indonesians, right, when you make a game, it's about usaha kan.
Yes.
It's a business.
Yeah.
Dan kalau misalkan lo dalam usaha itu bukan berarti lo langsung sukses.
True.
Usaha itu nggak wajib sukses.
True.
Gitu.
Yeah.
And that's why it's called usaha, effort,
Yeah.
kerja gitu kan,
Yeah.
not work.
Exactly.
Usaha gitu.
Exactly.
So that's what people need to understand. Like failure doesn't mean that it's bad, but failure means that you need to learn. It's about the mindset. Like when something fails, you need to learn where we went wrong,
Exactly.
and then you take that, you build that upon your next product.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that I feel like a lot of Indonesians need to understand. One failure is not the end of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's how you build, that's how you improve, that's how you develop some product, and that's how you gain success.
Exactly. And it's also the responsibility of current Indonesian game developers that are now generating healthy, significant revenues from their free-to-play, casual, clicker games to allocate some of these free cash flow, right, to developing games of higher quality, right? Because these are the developers that can actually afford investing and taking the risk of developing a major game.
Yeah.
Some other developers might not be able to take that risk, right? Some investors might not want to back up that kind of economics. So yes, the reality is that sometimes you need to have a few games that are already live on a Play Store maybe or some distribution platform already generating you cash every month, sustainable revenue, so that you can invest some of that into a game that is of higher quality, a game that is for the global market, a game that can compete with the likes of Assassin's Creed and Final Fantasy, a game that can actually be built into an IP that can be present on multiple media platforms. It takes vision and it takes patience.
Yeah, I
do it,
agree.
yeah.
And I agree. It's just that nowadays, right, since video gaming production has become so sophisticated and at times so
It
expensive.
can be expensive. Right?
Yeah, very expensive. In that when we develop a video game, we're on a handicap, right? Because Japan and the United States, they managed to launch video games and learn from their mistakes back when making video games was not that expensive. Do you think that is a correct statement to make, right?
Well, but there was also fewer available talents back then.
Of course, yeah, there was fewer available
And
talents.
distribution was harder.
Distribution was
physical
harder.
media.
Yes, there were different challenges back in the days. Now it's easier, but the standards have skyrocketed up, right?
Yeah. The price of failure is higher
of
today.
failure is higher today. That's the only handicap. Back then, it's much more easier to develop video games, even though there's smaller talent pool.
Yep.
and production in video games was not that expensive, so people learn from their mistakes then and transfer knowledge all the way up until they managed to make a great industry.
Yeah.
Now, the thing in Indonesia, I feel like the price of failure, as you said, is so high, so that the moment like people start making a video game and they fail once, that's it for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I feel like
So it's an all or nothing.
it's an
game
all
for
or
a lot of
nothing game
developers
for a
here.
lot of developers and investors.
Yeah.
So that's why I believe a lot of I feel like a lot of investors use the indie production houses in Indonesia as an experimental venture into video games because they know the price of failure is really high.
Yeah.
Next question, right? I have two more questions.
Sure.
This is the penultimate question, right?
Yeah.
So, if you are given power to determine the fate of our gaming industry, what will you do? What policies will you implement? Laws you will rewrite? Government bodies you will form? Yeah.
Well, obviously from the executive side, right? There's gonna be a lot more investment in education around curriculums and topics relevant to gaming development, right? So by constitution, 20% of our APBN is already guaranteed to be allocated into spending in education, right? But a lot of these spendings actually go to things like rapat-rapat, then actually a lot of spending that doesn't directly correlate with actual curriculum development.
Karaoke.
Exactly. A lot of extra spending. So we need to right size that first. We need to make sure make that right first, right? That amount of money, 20% of our RPBN, if a significant chunk of that allocated into development of curriculum and teachers and partnerships with relevant global schools that are relevant for gaming development. So programming, coding, writing, right? Game design, sound engineering, right? And even things like physics or in-game economics, even law, right? That are relevant to game development. These are crucial because at the end of the day, you need the talent. You need the talent to be grown from within, as opposed to continuously relying on global talent.
I see.
Because they're gonna be pricey, they're gonna be expensive, the risk is higher, etc., etc. So that's gonna be one. First, we have to do something with our education allotment for APBN, right? And then secondly, I think from a workforce perspective, could be it's something to do with Disnaker or the Ministry of Workforce, Ministry Ketenagakerjaan, to make it easier for global gaming talent to come and to work here, right? More incentives, more convenience for them to actually to go and come here. A lot of game developers, especially Indo developers, they're actually global digital nomads. I think we've done a few things right now by the introduction of Golden Visa, for example, that basically aims to make it easier for global talent.
Was
to
it
come.
Bahlil or Luhut's idea?
I'm not sure actually. Yeah, but actually that's a good start. But make specific benefits, specific perks for gaming talent. I think that's gonna probably encourage a lot of gaming talent to consider investing in this market specifically. Not just the individual, but also the big names publishers, right? Give a reason for the big name publishers to be excited about what's happening in the Indonesian gaming scene, right? Showcase the kind of talent that we have for development of their existing IPs, but also create that opportunity for technology and knowledge transfer between their talent with our talent, because that has to happen somehow. There's no way our local talent can suddenly learn out of nowhere and become expert out of nowhere in game development without that consistent, continuous exposure to development environment.
I see.
Right? And we have to rely on these local talent getting knowledge and technology transfer from publishers and developers getting excited about the global gaming market. Because at the end of the day, if you depend on Indonesians that go abroad, and working at global gaming companies, there's not going to be much reason for them to come back home to work for the local gaming industry.
Brain drain.
Exactly,
Yeah.
brain drain. So we have to reverse that, right? And then obviously gonna need to work with different fracties within the DPR to just make sure that gaming laborers are protected, proper labor rights. A lot of the challenges in the gaming industry are actually not unique to other specific industries when it comes to labor, tax incentives, access to global pool of talent. They're
It's
not
all
really
the universal problems.
Exactly. They're not really unique because at the end of the day, the gaming industry is an industry like any other.
Yeah.
Some specificities like we have to allow for more distribution of our game production, right? Now, I don't know how this works specifically. I have to need to work with the Minister of Trade, probably the Minister of Trade. What happens when we export stuff, right? Is there are export taxes involved there?
Yeah.
Are there additional costs, levies, etc.
Levies.
that exporters have to pay? Does that apply to exporting digital products, digital goods, right? It has to be solved. Local developers to distribute their games globally, right? And so yeah, but at the end of the day, even if I were on the government side, I would still think that innovation and actual growth needs to happen from the private sector. Doesn't mean that if I was in the government, then I'm going to be suddenly on the side of the government and think that everything needs to happen from the government side. At the end of the day, it's always about creating the right set of rules, the right set of conditions, climate and environment for the private sector to thrive, to innovate, right? And to make it so that profits and value creation, wealth creation from these gaming development activities are incentivized to happen in Indonesia. Or at the end of the day, you will see just what's happening right now in the startup world. People will incorporate their companies in Singapore, maybe hire some people locally, but basically make the entity a local subsidiary. But a lot of the value creation actually happen in Singapore. So a lot of the technology transfer and knowledge transfer mostly happen in countries like Singapore. So we have to make sure that's fixed as well. So long story short, the challenges in the gaming industry are not unique, not very specific to the gaming industry itself. It's a lot of the same challenges faced by any other industry that we're trying to develop. And whatever the government does, if I was on the government, it's gonna be always about enabling the private sector, the private companies to run wild with their ideas, man. To just unrestrict them,
Of course.
allow them to fail, right? To not punish failure, but to actually encourage showcasing the learnings that you get from failure. Yeah, so there's that.
Yeah. That's really I noticed that's a really like laissez-faire kind of way. Yeah. I do agree. We kind of need to create a condition for people to run wild.
Yeah.
Because like the government, I believe that the government is responsible for a lot of things, right? But when it comes to video games, it's a tertiary need.
Right now it is. Yeah.
It is a tertiary need. So I don't think the government should focus on being somebody who lights up the way, but rather somebody who paves the road.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
I feel like the government should
The same road that can be used by any other industry.
yeah.
Type of companies.
Yeah, so I do agree with you. Like we kind of need to take an attitude where the government should build the road, but it shouldn't really be the one walking down on it, you know. Because the government's attention should be better off in different places.
And don't meddle too much with who gets to walk on the road, who gets to use the road.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, fiscal conservative. Let's go. Ooh, neoliberalism. Would you call like your ideology as like neoliberalism or like fiscal conservative? What is the ideology?
I would say I'm socially progressive.
You're socially progressive,
fiscally
fiscally conservative.
Yeah.
I see.
Well, I cannot say I'm socially liberal.
Yeah, of course.
I would say I'm socially progressive.
Socially progressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Socially progressive. I feel like that's a trend with a lot of like UK university graduates.
Maybe, yeah, maybe organically that's what we subconsciously learn from our lecturers there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you need to protect your own money.
Yeah.
And all of that. But change is truly a great thing, but you kind of need to be a bit more iffy with your money.
Watch your deficits.
Watch your deficits, laddie. Like, basically like that.
Yeah.
I can imagine that. I
actually have a finance professor that actually sounded like that.
Oh, wow. Okay. I see.
Guess what his name is? It's the most British professor name ever.
Thomas?
Professor Meeks.
Meeks?
Professor Meeks. Professor, if you're alive and you're watching this, I miss you. I miss your classes.
Sounds like a Muppet. I'm sorry. I'm
Sounds
sorry.
like
I'm sorry.
Hogwarts teacher or something.
Yeah,
right?
a Hogwarts teacher. Yeah. But anyways, last question.
Hmm.
It's gonna be a short question. What's your MBTI?
I have no idea. Never took it.
You never took it.
I think I did some tests, and somebody tried to do that test on me. Never knew what my mind was. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't understand why I asked this question. I feel like it's just out of habit, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I started out with, you know, in the Raditya Dika episode, I was out of question.
Yeah.
So.
But I know I recharge my energy by being alone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a shy person. I can interact with a lot of people.
Yes.
Socially for extended periods of time.
Ah, I see.
Yeah,
I see.
but I do spend energy when I do that.
I see.
I charge energy when I'm alone, listening to music, just chilling, playing games, watching my favorite series, or just watching Netflix, and just relaxing.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
So basically an introvert.
Yeah, but I think the word introvert gets a bad rap these days.
Yeah, I guess.
It's typically used by people who are shy. They cannot talk to people. They don't want to spend a lot of time with people. I'm good at that, man. I have fun at parties. I socialize pretty well. I can converse for extended periods of time. Again, I don't mind spending a lot of time with a lot of people. But it's just that I do spend energy when doing that.
Yeah.
I think that's the definition of introvert. Right?
Yeah. I'm the same thing. Like you wouldn't guess it, but I'm actually an introvert.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm definitely a fucking introvert, man.
I think the words extrovert and introvert get confused a lot.
Yeah,
in Indonesia.
A year ago, I was literally a hikikomori. Yeah, because I was sick. I had.
I think you're still at risk of becoming one, probably.
I mean, I kind of still am if I have the choice. Right?
Yeah,
if I have the choice, I'd be a hikikomori.
You're a hikikomori risk.
But you know what? This entire year of this baseless Indonesian. Why do I call it baseless Indonesian? That's like out of character for me to say. Out of this, okay, cut that off, okay, agam. But
Isn't it supposed to be based?
Yeah, it's based Indonesian, right?
Yeah.
The based Indonesian show. Like, it's been so fun that it kind of got me out of my shell. Because I get to talk about all these topics I wanted to talk about with all these brilliant people. You know. Also the part that I get connections. So I can run for office.
And your state sponsors.
And state sponsors. I just met Ahok like a few days ago. He was nice. He was like, let me put you in a political party where you can excel. I'm like, wait for it. I don't have money or else I'm just going to be a bullet sponge. This is so tiring, this conversation, but so fun. Wow. Okay.
Wow. From Warhammer to Denuvo to Ahok.
To everything, man. Anyways, I guess that's all for the based Indonesian talks. Thank you very much, Mr. Wafa Taftazani, for coming in to my show. As simple as it is, there should be like a card box that says like based Indonesian show here. But like somebody stole the cardboard, I think.
Ouch.
I don't know why they would steal cardboard.
Yeah.
Imagine, like, how could you be so poor you steal a cardboard box?
You need Denuvo for your studio.
Yeah. Like, a Denuvo armed with an AK-47.
Yeah.
Anyways, it has been a great conversation. Thank you for tuning in, Based Indonesians, and I will see you in the next episode of the Based Indonesian Talks. Bye-bye, real people.
Stay based.
Stay based.
Subscribe to the Based Indonesian Show. Dijamin halal